record. Welcome, Max, to the pod for the end of the year trail running review or best of 2022.
Ciao, Fran. Thanks for having me again. I feel like we did this yearly review thing just a couple of weeks ago, but I think it's now been a year. So, of course, crazy how time flies, you know?
Yeah. I always like to take a moment to reflect on what happened at the end of the year. I think it's a good exercise, not just on myself, but like overall for our sport. And I was just listening actually to an episode of the Single Track podcast where Finn Melanson and Leah Yingling and another guest were discussing about what happened within 2022. And then we did that last year as one of the first episodes of our podcast. So I thought it would be cool to have another one this year. I should probably also mention that Free Trail launched an award that is the Trail Runner of the Year, which I think is a great idea, and actually is very, very well structured because the database that I put together is very impressive. Like there is a list of athletes. There is around 160 athletes, men and women, same number. And you can actually find on just one page their profiles, results from 2022, UTMB profile, ITRA profile, social media links, and then other like media. So it's just so easy to pick the athletes, make your list, and submit it for the TROY award.
Yeah. It's a little bit hard. Yeah.
Kind of like the UROY, the Ultra Runner of the Year, but I think this is more complete because it's distance agnostic and it's worldwide. Yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, the Euro, it's been going for a while now. I mean, of course, well, like more than 20 years now, but that's just having in mind runners from North America. So now this is the opportunity to just have everybody, and really meaning everybody on the pool of, for the contest. So yeah, it's I guess it was about time, to have this because the sport has been getting bigger and bigger. I mean, it's kind of crazy that we don't have this kind of, I don't know if prize or like, I guess, title, but like, it feels like this is the right time to kind of start doing this.
Yeah. And then of course there is our personal opinions, which we'll share here in a second. So I'm very curious actually to see the outcome of this Fantasy Free Trail Runner of the Year award, because everyone can vote from anywhere in the world. So each vote counts as one, which is cool. It's very democratic. But yeah, here I think it will be fun to just reflect on what we did and how we saw the 2022 seasons, exciting moments, favorite races, favorite athletes, best performances. And then we will also go through what were the best performances according to the ITRA and UTMB indexes, which I wrote them down here, and a little bit of anticipation for the 2023 calendars, which were announced over the past couple of weeks by Skyrunning, Golden Trail Series, and World Mountain Running Association for their World Cup.
Yeah.
Awesome.
In the meantime, the UTMB world keeps adding races, like basically on a weekly basis. I saw it yesterday that they added the first East Coast race, the Grindstone, I think.
Yeah, I got an email from them. There is, so I think it's like a race on the East Coast of the United States. And then they're also adding new races in Asia because they want to, of course, there is a big market there, a lot of great athletes too, which we mainly don't know because they usually only compete in China or East Asia. But, with their goal of trying to make a truly global series, they're adding more dates and races in Asia. So there's now, I think, over 25 races inside this series, which is not a circuit, strictly speaking, but a series of races to qualify for the UTMB week, which is the final.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we can get started. So very simple question. What's your favorite thing that happened during 2022? Can be a race, a performance, personal experience, trail run, just anything that comes to your mind.
Well, you say simple, but I guess that this is a more complicated question to answer. And I think for me, it's actually, I think, impossible to kind of answer in a single way. But I guess I can mention a few things. On a personal level, I've always been a fan of the hard rock. And I think for me personally, this year, seeing, you know, two of the greatest 100-mile racer, you know, battling it out, you know, meaning Francois and Kilian, you know, basically going together until, I don't know, mile 85, mile 90.
Yep.
And then, of course, having Dakota in the mix too. I think that was huge. And in that regard too, and I know, I guess every year you kind of have to talk about Kilian, but then again, it is super impressive how he just managed to do Sagama, do Hard Rock, and then again, go and do Sierra Sinal, which I guess this year he didn't won. But again, you know, 2 weeks later, and I think actually battling with COVID too in the middle of it, just bounced back to, you know, win again UTMB. So, I mean, I wish I wouldn't have to say that that's one of the most impressive things, but I think on the personal level, I think that still surprised me a lot, you know, like seeing how he just managed to do whatever he wants when it comes to, you know, trail races. And then on a racing level, yeah, I really love to see again the kind of the battle, quote unquote, in between Francois and Kilian, which I believe are two of the greatest 100-mile racers of all time. So yeah, I guess that battle is now settled now, having Kilian won or beat Francois, right?
Yeah.
And then lastly too, I think, and I kind of hate to talk about like comebacks, but I feel like you can, I mean, it's legit saying like it was great seeing, you know, Dakota coming back to the scene, you know, being competitive at Hard Rock again, you know, dominating the field at Javelina 100 a couple of months ago, and winning his ticket to Western States next year. So I think that's going to be definitely exciting. And then another one that maybe doesn't kind of is high on the list, but I think it's also worth mentioning, is having Zach coming back to the scene after a couple of rough years with his injuries and everything. So yeah, maybe he didn't won one of the, meaning UTMB. I think he got 4 or like top 5.
He got 50 at UTMB, and then he won
Yeah.
like another 100-miler really close to UTMB in Andorra.
And yeah, I think it was
very
that
impressive.
was like previous. Yeah.
And then he came to the World Championship.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think overall having him back in the scene, and I know he's kind of a personality in itself. So I think it's great to have them. And he kind of speak about the longevity in the sports in the way that both of those guys been running hard for a long time, especially Dakota. I know, like he probably ran his first 100 miles Hard Rock, I don't know, 8 years ago, 10 years ago. And then
with Cal Skag.
Yeah, right. And he has some pretty impressive results, of course, along the way, like winning Transvulcania, beating Kilian there, and other results. But then it kind of, I guess you wouldn't say disappear, but it just kind of went off, I guess, from the racing scene for a couple of years. And now having him back here, I think it's definitely one of those people that is really appreciating the scene. So I'm happy to see him back. Hopefully is happy at the place that he is right now, and excited to see him racing Western States next year for sure.
Of course. Yeah, I think Dakota is incredibly talented. Is had to battle a little bit with injuries. And then I don't know, I think he also had other interests outside of running, which maybe prevented him a little bit from achieving his full potential. But I see that now he's very motivated, also being like a teammate of Kilian with Normal. And you know, that has been also a cool project and a big change for him. He used to be sponsored by Salomon, and then this year he joined the normal team. So yeah, shout out to Dakota.
Also,
actually the comeback of the year was a separate award, but I'm glad you brought that up. Because it's a pretty cool one. Of course I would have mentioned Dakota and Zach.
I also
seeing
have,
them again at their top levels, and also among the women, I think it's worth mentioning Marianne Hogan. Because she finished on the podium of both UTMB and
Western
States, which was super impressive after a few tough years. So that was honestly great to see.
Yeah, I also have Emily as a sort of a comeback. I know that again, she may not be completely disappear from the racing scene, but like seeing her back, you know, at Zegama, Ultra Pyreneo too.
And Stranda also, she was
Stranda too,
third in the Golden Trail World Series stage with you know, a lot of fast young athletes. Super impressive.
I think it's definitely one of those kind of racers or like personalities that is good to have in the sport, whether they are racing or not. But of course, if they are racing, if they are happy, I think it's super valuable to have as a whole. So I'm also happy to see her back. Maybe not at the top level or what she believed is her top level, but still, I mean, I think having her again competing with some of the younger ladies out there, especially in the shorter circuits, I think it speaks of the quality as a athlete that she is. So yeah, it's great.
I think she's pretty happy for where she is at the moment, and actually having had a chance to interview her for our podcast, you know, she puts a lot of value in what she's doing, and she's more interested in the process rather than the outcome. So the results, of course, there is not much left for her to win, I guess. But you know, seeing her still crushing it and enjoying training and racing is very inspiring and good for the sport, I think. So that's definitely worth mentioning. For me, I guess, you know, there is a lot of things that I could mention from this year, but you know, having had the possibility to be at UTMB, to just support and watch the runners, there was an incredible energy and a very cool ambience. So on a personal level, I think I would choose that race as my maybe favorite moment from 2022. That is not, you know, a personal race or goal. And also like seeing Mathieu, Blanchard, Kilian, Tom Evans, and Jim Walmsley battling for, you know, 20 hours or a little less, which because they actually broke the 20-hour mark this year, was pretty awesome. So of course, I guess we already answered the question of our athlete of the year, at least on the men's side, because what Kilian did, alternating short and long races, going from Zegama to Hard Rock to Sierre-Zinal to UTMB, and winning almost all of them, was super impressive. And I actually encourage you to go on his personal blog and read the article that he has put together, which is incredibly interesting and well written. He's just very open about his own training and the choices that he made it this year. And I think any runner from any level could find a lot of value in that. So I was very inspired by that.
Totally. I think it's hard. I mean, of course, when we talk about Kilian, we are kind of used to him doing all sorts of craziness, so it's hard to kind of miss that. But for me, you know, it's still, I have to say, very, very impressive how he managed to just go and do, again, whatever he wants to do when it comes to, you know, doing trail races. So,
pretty much anything he puts on his mind. And just to give a reference, the top 3 best performances on the ITRA 2022 ranking were all by Kilian Jornet, with 961 points for Zagama and 952 points for both Hard Rock and UTMB. And Davide Magnini is actually second on the list with the fourth performance with 949 points, also from Zagama. And then we have Mathieu Blanchard, UTMB, 948. Sylvain Cachard for the Sky Race de Matezin, 947, and Petter Engdahl for his win and course record at CCC with 947. And also I should probably mention Hannes Namberger, win and course record at Lavaredo in June. So just to give you, the ITRA ranking might be not the most accurate index to describe performances for any distance. But it's still a pretty big reference, being a huge database of athletes and performances. So I guess it's worth mentioning that.
I agree, and we have to remember that it's always so hard to kind of compare results when it comes to running 100 miles versus doing Segama or even doing Sierra Sinal. Which I guess it makes it even more crazy to think that Kilian managed to do well in those three things. So, but I think, as you were saying, it's not perfect, but I think it's a good place to start, and those numbers are probably a good reference of having had a great performance at that given race. Yeah,
is another way to put into perspective what Kilian did, with those three races. And then, of course, Serginal, he got fourth, but it's not too far from the level of those performances. It was really cool, actually, honestly, to be at Zagama and seeing both Kilian and Davide breaking the course record. I think Davide's season has been a little bit underrated because he didn't win any big race. He got second at Zagama, second at Mont Blanc Marathon behind John Albon, but with two incredible performances. The level of those two performances is just incredible. And this ITRA index proves it because he's second on the list. So shout out to Davide for an incredible season. It's not always about winning. For me, it's a lot about performance, and it doesn't matter if you win.
And just being able to do good results all over your season, not just one shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe the second part of his year wasn't the best. It faded a little bit in August and then September, and then of course he had to start his chemo season, which he started pretty well because he finished second to Remy Bonnet in the first World Cup of this year. But
and after probably Remy having his best season so far, so we know Remy is on a really high
another
level,
chapter.
So, exactly.
So I guess we can go through. Well, first maybe let's talk a little bit about the woman, because I think we both agree on our pick for the trail runner of the year here in Jornet. But what about the woman?
I guess for me it's a little bit the same in the way that it's hard because it is kind of obvious in a way to kind of, in the men's side, for example, not talk about Kilian, and for me on the woman's side it's of course hard to not mention Courtney again and again. Again, she has an amazing season. It's so hard again to kind of even realize the amount of achievements that she do on every season, basically, again, winning Hard Rock and then going to Diagonal de Fou, that I know many people, especially from the US, kind of don't really get how hard that race really is when it comes to, 100 miles. And she basically
how fast she ran.
she destroyed the record. I mean, the woman record by almost kind of 2 hours, and then she was basically just going for the podium, overall podium. And I think it's again super hard to even understand the level of difficulty of what she was trying to do. But again, I mean, of course, it surprised me because it is very hard, and I understand that. But at this time, Courtney, it's showing us every year that she is on another level when it comes to especially doing ultras. but then again, it was super fun also to see her at Sagama this year, which I know is far from her,
but she got
I
a top
guess
10, which was
wheelhouse.
very impressive.
Exactly. And just being out there at Sagama, which is like this mountain marathon, which is nothing, it has nothing to do with running 100 miles in the mountains. And then going out and having fun and placing top 10 on a really, really competitive field also speaks a lot about how she managed to just basically do whatever she wants when it comes to racing. So for me it's Courtney all over the world.
Yeah, she might not be as versatile as Killian, because she's never been like as competitive as he is on short distances, but for sure she is incredibly talented, and she's redefining the concept of ultra running at least for how fast she runs.
And before I do have to mention too, because I guess in my mind I always kind of separate kind of the ultras from the sub ultra distances.
True.
And of course I have to mention your teammate, Nienke. I think it's also so impressive how I think it's hard for people to understand what she's doing in terms of like just going out and doing a really, really good marathon. And then a couple of weeks later, or a couple of months later, just being able to switch gears and just destroy the field when it comes to trail races. So for me, anything under, 50K is basically Nienke's dominating the field.
Yeah. I actually had Nienke as my first pick on the Fantasy Free Trail Runner of the Year. Maybe there is a little personal bias on that, but what she did in 2022 was simply incredible, going from a 2-hour 22 road marathon in Rotterdam, which was the Dutch national record, to a win and course record at Zagama, then back to marathon training, taking 3rd place at the European Marathon Championship on the road, and then back again, winning the 2 US stages of the Golden Trail World Series at Pikes Peak Ascent and Flagstaff Sky Peaks, and then of course dominating the overall ranking of the Golden Trail World Series. For me, it was simply, incredible, like on another level. So I totally agree with you about Courtney's season. She's been incredible, but then like having to pick one spot for the first place, I would probably put Nienke this year.
It's a hard one, and I guess you more than everybody just know how hard it would be to do a good marathon on the roads and then just switch gears, and just go out and do Pikes Peak or like do any other like short trail race, like technical at altitude, et cetera. So I mean, for me, it's hard to compare because 100 miles again doesn't have anything to do with a short like mountain sub ultra distance. Both of her achievements are really, really high on my list.
Yes. And then who else do you have for the podium, for the 3rd spot of the podium?
In terms of race performance, I also I think I have to mention Katie Scheid, and because with the live stream and everything, we were seeing basically most of UTMB how she started dominating, and then I don't know if she went through a rough patch or anything, but then of course being second, and having, I don't know, almost 15-20 minutes at some point, and then eventually just getting back into racing mode to finally manage to regain first place and have a great race at UTMB. I think it's kind of hard to again understand how hard it is to do those stuff for the average runner, and also it may feel like it's just like one result on a year, but I guess there is just years of consistent training. I mean, Katie lives in Europe, so she knows the scene very well, but like I'm guessing for her it was a massive achievement just being able to kind of win at UTMB, which is massive, and is something that actually any other American yet male haven't been able to do. So It's something about women from from the US that I don't know. It just they can crack the code at UTMB. You
Yeah,
know that.
it's crazy.
Yeah. So I don't know. It kind of makes it easier in a way, but of course it's not. So I guess Katie is also on my list of like really, really good performances when it comes to racing this year.
Yeah. For me, I really value Katie's season, but basically after UTMB, she wasn't as consistent as I expected her. I think she only did a couple of other races, which were not like really high level. So to put her on the podium, of course, she's in my top 10, but to put her on the podium, that is probably not enough. And I tend to look at Blandine Lirondel's season as, you know, on a better level than Katie Scheid. Blandine won and set course record at CCC. She won the European Trail Championship. She was placing really well in the Golden Trail World Series races, meaning either on the podium or like top 5. And then she won the World Championship in Thailand, which was also a pretty solid achievement.
That's definitely a crazy year.
Yeah, definitely a great year. Maybe, yeah, of course, CCC record was a breakthrough performance, kind of like Katie Scheid at UTMB. But I think overall she was a little more consistent. So I had her on the podium for the Trail Runner of the Year.
Definitely a good pick. Yeah, I agree.
And then, yeah, for sure, other people worth mentioning, Katie Scheid, also Maud Matisse. I think a lot of people underestimate her season, but she was battling through an injury and she was still able to race and perform really well throughout her year. Zagama, she was second. Pikes Peak Ascent, she was second. Also Sierzinal, so that was very solid. She was also on the podium at the World Championship in the uphill race, which was won by Ali McLaughlin.
Which also it's another word.
Yeah.
Mention.
Yeah, actually, when I submitted the Fantasy Free Trail Peaks, I had her on the podium and not Blondine, but I don't remember either third or fourth. But for sure, she had an incredible season from Broken Arrow.
For sure, yeah.
On the short distance, but going from win and course record at Broken Arrow, Mont Marathon race, win and course record, and then she was crushing it at Pikes Peak Ascent and Flagstaff Sky Peaks, and then in Madeira for the Golden Trail World Series final. And she was able to combine that with a first place finish at the World Championship in the uphill race and a third place finish in the up and down race in a matter of 10 days.
How many days? Yeah, that's
from the Golden Trail Series final start to the World Championship, it was like a week. So she probably raced like 5 times in 10 days, and she won, I think, 3 out of 5 races on a world class level, which is completely crazy.
Insane. Yeah,
insane.
So especially if you consider the traveling and everything. Like,
of course, Thailand is on the other side of the world.
Exactly. I'm pretty wordless after a long flight, so I can imagine just getting off the plane and just put the US bib and just representing your country to go all out and just ended up winning. It's so insane.
I had such a fun conversation with her. She was a guest on the pod, so for anyone that is interested, we talked about her season very extensively. So
yeah, I think she's definitely, I mean, I wouldn't consider her a rookie because I know she's been on this thing for a while, but it's definitely one of those breakthrough years in the way that she got a lot of recognition. So I think, of course, she won't fly under the radar for next year's season. But I think she has proved that she has, enough quality as a runner to kind of maintain his, position. So I think she's probably, you know, gonna have a few more incredible years ahead of her in terms of racing. Yeah.
Yeah. She's incredibly talented. Like,
yeah.
Even during college, in her like a freshman year at Colorado University, like her performance at NCAA was the second best behind Shalane Flanagan, to just give an idea of how
which
good
rings
she
a bell
is.
for sure. Yeah.
So yeah, definitely breakthrough season by Ali. She runs for On Running. She's pretty crazy and a very fun person to have around.
Yeah, which also I think it's great. It makes it I
Yeah.
think it's great to have these personalities in the sports, because I believe a lot of the time it's not like people are the same overall, but I think, you know, she came along like pretty genuine, and I think like you can tell
Yeah.
that. I mean, I'm just saying by social media and everything, but I think it's great overall that just to have people with character and just saying what she thinks she believes. I think it's great. I think it's also a good inspiration from other like young ladies out there, and kind of putting the trail sport as a whole in, you know, in the list of legit sports or legit career to do when you are over, you know, maybe your cross country or like track and field kind of career.
Yeah. So let's complete the podium for the men, because we extensively talked about Killian, but who else do you have on the podium for the trail runner of the year?
I guess from the US perspective, it would be really hard not to mention, of course, Adam Peterman.
Yes.
And for me, I feel like this is kind of a deja vu of like what Jim was doing, I don't know, 5 years ago.
Yes.
And I feel like they are both kind of similar in the way that they are pretty talented runner from a technical point of view. I think that Adam may be a little bit more mature, I guess, in the way that he's approaching racing and everything. So I think in that regard, we may see him maybe achieving better results in Europe, at least in the way that, for example, Jim moved to Europe this year, moved to France, just in order to kind of unlock this UTMB win that has eluded US runner for forever now. Yeah. So maybe now Adam, you know, is kind of learning from all of his past, you know, runners, and maybe he will be able to kind of achieve this sooner than later. But overall, I mean, he had an awesome season again. He basically won everything when it comes to, you know, racing ultras. Yeah. And of course, it will be really hard not to put him really high on the podium for sure.
For sure. I agree. I actually had him third on my list because in second place, I really value the season of Patrick Kipngeno from Kenya. He may not be the most famous runner for the average fan, but what he did this year was just incredible. The only race that he lost was Cerzinal, where he got second, and then the World Championship in the up and down race, but he won the uphill race at the World Championship. And then he was just crushing it in every race that he did, mainly in short distance, like one-turn races. For example, he broke a course record, which has stood for like over 30 years at Tion d'Ixelles, which is a race that is run in Switzerland, very close to Cerzinal. And that's just to give an idea of how good and talented and how strong he was running this year. So shout out to Patrick. He may not be the most famous runner out there, but for me, his performances were super, super impressive. He dominated the World Mountain Running Cup because he basically won every race. So I think it's great that more runners from all over the world are coming to the sport, and he's a great example that even, you know, African runners can perform really well in mountain trail running. So Patrick,
I agree.
And then of course Adam Peterman on the podium. I think, you know, winning Western States plus the World Championship in Thailand was pretty big. Being, you know, his debut on the 100-mile race distance, also winning canyons in April of this year, which was his debut on the 100K race. So, you know, it's not so easy to nail it
For sure.
at your first time. And
Yeah,
then I think it's impossible not to mention the season that Remy Bonnet had. It was by far his best season. He's just been, you know, really consistent throughout the year, from when he started skiing during the winter. Then when he transitioned onto the trails, he broke a course record at Nery-Boumalzon, which is a small race in Switzerland. But this record was by Jonathan Wyatt, and no one has even come close to that. And he lowered it by like 40 seconds or something like that. But it was super impressive. And then, of course, he crashed Pikes Peak, Flagstaff Sky Peaks, and then the Golden Trail Series final. So he finished the 2022 season very, very strong. And for sure, he deserves a mention, just as Peter Engdahl, I think, because he was also super consistent. And the performance that he delivered at CCC, being the first man under the 10-hour mark, was huge, honestly. So those are my top 5.
I agree.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I'm totally on board with you. I feel like maybe another character or like runner on my list that it may be not as high as the podium, but also on the top 5. And I think it's hard for him because this year probably didn't get any single major win, but he was up there in every single race. Of course, it's Jon Albon. You beat him at the world champs. But again, he's proving to be one of those runners that he can be really good at a pretty wide range of distance, meaning, you know, short races and like up to 100K. I don't know if he has in mind going up to 100-mile distance, but I think for now, you know,
it's
anything under or around 50K, you know, he's so strong. I'm also very impressed by Peter and him being able to just beat him at CCC. Maybe he didn't have the best day, so you know, in terms of like maybe you know, details and everything, but still you know, Peter going under 10 hours for CCC just speaks of, you know, how good of a run he had to do in order to kind of beat John, you know, at that race. And I think, again, both of them are super talented, like, again, super good at fast running, but also technical running. I think both of them also do a lot of scheme on it, like cross training and everything. So of course, that probably helps with that. But I think those two guys are really impressive. Are going to have a couple of good years ahead of them, especially Peter, because I know he's younger. But yeah, those two are definitely on my top 5 for sure.
Yeah. Maybe Jonathan Albon didn't have his best day at CCC. I think he was running better. It was like stronger at Mont Blanc Marathon, which he won, and also Stranda in Norway, which was a Golden Trail Series stage that he also won. So yeah, it's definitely my top 10. And then I want to mention Stian Angermund because he made it clear since you know, the beginning of 2022 that his goal was to win the World Trail Championship, and in November he did.
And he went and did it. It's kind of crazy because I mean, Stian has been probably doing a lot of races in past years. So his name come up pretty frequently when it comes to podium and like winning. And probably this year he didn't do a lot of racing, even though I saw him at Kima and I think he got second or third. I think he tied with
he didn't do his like most typical season, which would include like Golden Trail Series races. He stayed a little bit on outside, like out of the spotlights, focused on smaller races with the goal of being fit on the right day for the World Championship. And he ran super strong there. So I think it's a very good example of you know, how to focus on a goal and then achieving the goal. So it's cool. All right.
I know maybe because this year, you know, I guess is the first year after the pandemic that it's been like full on racing mode. So
True.
I know, for
That's
example,
important.
FKTs and everything hasn't been maybe as popular as in the past few years, of course, because of all races coming back and everything. So but I do think it's worth mentioning, Bob Graham's
Oh yeah, the
FKT
program round.
said by Jack. And I know
Yeah.
this may be considered something like very niche into the sport, because I know, of course, like Bob Graham is this epic route in the fells, like in the UK. So not a lot of people know them. But of course, if you are in the scene of mountain ultra running, you probably have heard of it. And from him, just to be out there, again, beating Killian's time, which, he's not playing around when he goes and do this stuff. And he just didn't, beat his time for a couple of seconds. He beat him for a couple of minutes. And, there's some videos out there of him just going out so hard every single time, and running all out just to the finish of this route. I think it kind of tells you that even though there's plenty of races out there and there are plenty of circuits, there's still, just the pure trail experience of being out there, doing your best, running as hard as you can, to beat this imaginary time probably you were chasing, this time. So yeah, I know Jack hasn't probably raced at all when it comes to formal racing, but he's been doing FKTs all over the place for a while now. And I think probably Bob Graham is kind of the consolidation of his performance when it comes to FKT. So yeah, I think it's worth mentioning.
Yeah, I think it embodies the spirit of ultra running in a very genuine way. Like, you don't have to do races to call yourself a trail runner. FKTs are a great example of how you can approach the sport. And he's just been, crushing it. And the Bob Graham round was a pretty impressive one.
Yeah.
Nice. So to maybe complete this big athlete performance of the year ranking, I wanted to give you my names for the overall top 10 of the Fantasy Free Trail and my ideal Trail Runner of the Year award for the man. I also mentioned Davide Magnini, Hannes Lamberger, and Andreu Blanes. He won Cerzinal, and he is also my pick for the Rising Star of the Year. And then from in the woman, for people we didn't mention, I have Maud Matisse, Sophia Lockley, Andrea Meyer, Ruth Croft, and also Esther Chesang, which she won Cerzinal. So very impressive group of athletes.
Yeah, and, I mean, you even tend to forget some of the names, like for example, Ruth winning Western.
Oh yeah,
Ruth has been performing at the top of her game for, I don't know, 4 to 5 years now. So
yes,
of course it's kind of easy to miss her, doing what she does. But yeah, she always delivered when it comes to racing. And of course, maybe I don't know if she did any racing after Western States. I think she
was second at Le Templier in
okay.
France.
Yeah.
She didn't race at UTMB.
She
tends to pick.
OTC,
She tends to choose very few races, but focus really well on each of them, which is a style that I personally like.
I respect, for sure.
Okay, so maybe let's talk a little bit about rising stars or like new names coming to the sport that are maybe not as famous. Maybe they didn't make the top 10, which if I could have added more and more athletes, I think there is so many that deserve a mention, but we just don't have enough space here. Who are your, maybe some athletes that you discovered this year that burst onto the scene and that really impressed you?
This is a good one. I'm terrible with names, so I may not be able to recall exact names. But like for example, on the sub ultra distances, I meaning people who is running the Golden Trail series. I think all of the guys, and meaning the whole team, basically from Matrix. I don't know how you pronounce that. You know, the French team. I think what those guys are doing in the sub ultra, you know, races is pretty impressive, and I really like the approach that they are doing, you know, in terms of like going to races as a team, you know, kind of building together towards this goal. Maybe you can help me with some of the big names there, but I feel like they have had some pretty solid results overall. And again, they are not totally new to the sport, because they actually, the team, I think it has now a couple of years now since his inception, but
probably more,
a couple, 4 years now.
Yeah, since 2019, something like that.
Yeah, but I feel like it's one of those things that it takes time before you can actually see the results. And I think I really like that, again, the team approach, which I think is something that, for example, on the road scene, you see a lot, but on the trail scene is still kind of missing at a certain point. So all of the efforts that they are doing, male and female, I think it's great for the sport. I think, again, I don't know the exact names of them, but I know they kind of have a personality come from the team as a whole. So I really appreciate that. And I think most of those guys will probably, you know, will have some good results in the coming seasons, and they will probably start moving again to the ultra scene too. So I think that will be, I guess, more easy for them to kind of be better known. But I think what they're doing, it's great. And again, you mentioned, you know, Pedro, but I think overall, what Africans are doing, and I know also that they have been running trails for a while now. It's just like people don't realize that. I know that, for example, in the World Mountain Cup, they usually go and crash it, but like they are getting more known because, for example, they are going to now Golden Trail Series races like Segama, like Sierra Sinal. So people is kind of realizing like, whoa, like apparently, you know, Africans can run on trails, and of course they can. You know, they have been doing it for a while, but again, as a whole, I think that they have been, you know, doing a better job probably at, you know, just being out there, kind of putting it out there when it comes to doing big efforts in well-known races and respect races. So I think those guys as a group, meaning male and female, because remember me the name of this lady who won Sierra Sinal?
Esther Chesang.
Yeah. Like, for example, she also like crashed it, and I know she has been running for a while now. But for me, of course, his name probably wasn't, you know, in my radar. But now, all of them are pretty high when it comes, you know, being at a podium at these, you know, super competitive races.
Yeah. You know what I really like about Team Metrics is that they're growing talents and athletes. They're not just going out and picking athletes that are already established or really famous and performing, but they're taking them as young athletes and growing and just launching their careers. That is an approach that I really value. And of course, it's a great team. It's a little bit modeled on cycling teams.
Yeah.
And I think is an approach that we don't find very often in trail running, because the sort of teams that are sponsored by brands, they work in a slightly different way, and everyone is more on his own. Usually people go and maybe sometimes they train together, but just for specific races. So of course it's not that easy, and the trail running is an individual sport, but they're trying to bring more of that team spirit, which is pretty cool.
I do forget to mention, and I think this is, again, maybe she's not like totally new to the sport, and we know this person personally, but I think I also have to mention Jasmine Lauder.
Oh yeah.
It's funny because you coach her. She had a great kind of breakthrough year. Her one at Canyons, you know, and then sadly she couldn't make it to Western State, but then he went to like the UTMB festival and also had a great race there at TCC, if I don't recall correctly.
Fourth place. Yes.
Yeah. So I think, of course, it's not like she just came out of nowhere, because I know she's been running for a while now. But I think this is like her first competitive year as an athlete, as a runner. So being out there right from the gun, you know, winning Canyons, and then just being top 5 at CCC, I think it's huge, and it speaks of her raw talent, when it comes to running, especially ultra. So I think that's another one that is really high on my list. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. She went from training with Vert.run with us to signing a pro contract with the North Face and crushing it at Canyons and UTMB. So that speaks that maybe something that we were doing is correct.
Yeah.
It's good.
It may be coming from too close, but I do believe that we are definitely doing something right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. She's also been in touch with me, so yeah, for sure, a name to watch out for 2023. And then of course, yeah, the Kenyan runners doing really well at Golden Tour Series races, even the more technical races like Zagama. I think there were 3 or 4 athletes from Africa in the top 10 of Zagama, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Cerzinal is always historically under their radars. So there is usually a lot of African runners. And I think I counted 9 East African runners, so either from Kenya, Ethiopia, or Uganda, in the top 10 man and female ranking of Cerzinal. So basically half of the top 10 was from Africa, which is pretty cool.
That's great.
I want to mention 2 names that I already brought up. For the man, Andreu Blanes, he comes from Orienteering. He won Cerzinal at his debut, running under 2 hours 30 minutes, which is like I think the third best performance ever.
Yeah.
So super impressive. Then he also did really well at the World Championship. And then Sophia Lockley, pretty cool discovery for Team Salomon. She actually comes from cross-country skiing, and she competed in the Olympic Games. But
which I guess kind of tells you right away that she also has kind of the conditions to excel at running. But yeah.
She I think she also placed really well at Broken Arrow. Then she went on to do really well in the Golden Tour Series, both the US races and the final. She was battling with Nienke at some point during Flagstaff Sky Peaks. She was even in front of Nienke, and that's super insane. Impressive. Yeah, it's really insane. Now she's already skiing, of course, but she's for sure a huge talent and a name to watch out for in 2023.
Yeah, I think it's one of those kind of rare cases, because most of the time we have people coming from probably track and field background or road running, but I think or at least I don't recall someone having that much success coming from the cross country or from the winter kind of a sport, kind of arena. So I think it's great to have her. She's probably going to have some awesome results in the coming years too, because she probably has kind of the raw, talent for it. So yeah, also like a super exciting name to watch out for the future.
Yeah. Cool. I wanted to cover a little bit of anticipations and calendars for 2023, because they were announced this week, basically, by the Golden Tour World Series, the World Mountain Running Cup by the World Mountain Running Association, and then I think Skyrunning announced it a couple of weeks ago with the Skyrunning World Series back with pretty good money as prize purse and pretty exciting races. So I think they want to relaunch and rebrand the series, which is good, which is exciting. I think there is like 12 stages across Europe and North America with some new races. And
there is even one in South America, I believe, in Peru.
Yeah, in Peru. So, the Cordillera Blanca Sky Race is in July. And then, an alternation of classic races and some new races like this one in Peru. It looks pretty good. There is like a $100,000 prize purse with 20,000 going to the winner of the overall series. So that will hopefully attract some very, very good runners. The World Mountain Running Cup also announced their calendar, starting from the Broken Arrow VK and Sky Race in California in June. And then basically the whole series will move to Europe with a lot of established classic mountain races. And the final, I think it will be in Gran Canaria. It looks like it will be the Sky Gran Canaria for the uphill, classic, and long distance events. While the Golden Trail World Series is basically back to its original format with just one new addition compared to their first edition. So like very big established historic races, starting from the Gamma in May, Marathon du Mont Blanc in France will be the second stage, Dolomites Run in Canada, the old Dolomites Sky Race in Italy, Sierre-Zinal, Pikes Peak Ascent, and then Mammoth 26K at Mammoth Trail Fest in Mammoth Lakes, California, which is the race that is organized by Tim Tollefson.
Tim Tollefson, right? Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. With the final being in Italy on a one-day race, unlike this year, which was a stage race. So there will be, of course, a lot on the plate, a lot of exciting action. Not even mentioning the UTMB series. You know, we've mentioned that they added a bunch of races. Of course, UTMB has its place at the end of August. So maybe we are only missing the dates of the World Championship, because actually the World Championship this year was supposed to be in 2020, but it was postponed to 2022 for the pandemic. So next year is already another edition of the World Championship, which will take place in June in Austria,
the lovely Innsbruck,
in Innsbruck.
Right?
Yeah, one of your favorite cities.
Yeah.
So that will be
exciting
another exciting contest.
It's interesting to see, because this year, you know, it was kind of late in the season, so I know for a lot of the guys it was kind of hard to kind of hold on to November to manage to be there and be fit basically to do it. So it will be interesting to see how this year, having it more kind of you know, during the summer season, like or beginning of the season, will kind of fit everybody schedule wise. So
it's not going to be easy, especially for the ultra guys and girls, because of course you need time to recover from a 80+K race. But I think in terms of calendar for the short distance trail race and mountain races, that they did a pretty good job, because basically Zegama is 3 weeks before the World Championship, and Mont Blanc Marathon, which is like the closest big race of a similar distance, is a couple of weeks later. So it's still possible to combine, for example, Golden Trail Series and World Championship, which for an athlete like me, for example, is ideal. So I'm actually happy that I don't know if it's by chance or if it's because they decided to do so.
Hopefully not. Let's hope that they are just thinking this through more thoroughly.
Yes.
So
yeah. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that both Skyrunning and the World Mountain Running Association announced that they will have a cooperation between them and the WADA anti-doping agency to control the athletes participating in their series of races, which is of course an important part of the sport, of the competition, that we need to take care of. So that's another piece of news that I wanted to highlight.
Good, nice. I think there's still so many development on that front that it feels like we are kind of years behind of what it should be. But of course, it's always nice to see some improvement or like some I guess step forward in the right direction. Yeah,
totally.
Maybe on that front, and not specifically talking about races, but I would like to talk or to ask you to let us know a little bit about what you're doing now with the pro athletes. How do you call it? Association, or
the Pro Trail Runners Association? which was born basically last week.
I know maybe a lot of people don't really know about it yet, or may have just kind of read a post here and there, but I think it's also maybe one of those kind of missing links that we had so far in terms of like the whole scene. And I know this may not be super relatable to the average runner, but I do believe that having this some sort of association in between all of the kind of good well-known names in the sports, I think it's again another step in the right direction when it comes to developing our sport. So yeah, I just basically would like to hear a little bit about it without going into too many details, but and what better than to hear it from you.
Of course. Yeah, we basically felt like it was a good moment for us pro athletes to reunite and form an association to stand for our rights and make sure that the values and what makes trail running special is preserved with a sport that is always growing and changing. A lot of athletes have joined. We have over 140 members so far. And basically the idea started from me, Killian, and Pascal Egli. So we've been talking a lot and reaching out to people, asking for questions, and just putting together the documents to start this association. And basically now we will form like working groups dedicated to different projects that we want to focus on, mainly on 3 or 4 different areas. One being anti-doping, of course, which is necessary to protect our activity as pro athletes. The second topic is on athletes' rights, for example, when it comes to contracts and also participation to races and circuits and everything related to that. Then we would like to have a voice basically at the same level as federations and circuits to make sure that the calendars that they make doesn't go one against the other. So allowing basically more participation and a better level at each competition. And then maybe the fourth topic that we really care about is sustainability and just trying to preserve the ecosystems and the nature where we compete, and which is one reason why trail running is so special, the connection with nature and the mountains. So it's exciting, and I think it was the right time for this association to come to life. It's something that other sports that are more developed already have. For example, the PTO, the Professional Triathlete Association. There is also one in professional cycling. So yeah, very happy to be kind of leading this group and to be starting the work in 2023.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm super excited. And again, I know that maybe a lot of people won't be able to really relate with this, but I do believe that what you're doing and these first steps are going to be great, basically to have a voice from all of you guys. To just make sure that that the sport is developing in the right way.
Yes, we really care about that, and we'll feel our responsibility. And I wanted to mention that even if you're not an athlete, that you're not a pro and you're not involved in the association, what we're doing will affect everyone and will have positive consequences on all athletes. So it will just make the sport better for everyone.
Cool. I'm happy to hear that you will be leading this front group along with Killian and Pascal. So yeah, I think I rest assured that it's in good hands.
Yeah, actually, the members of the board, we voted for the board of the association. They're going to be, so there will be me, Pascal, and then Corinne Malcolm, Pau Capel, Fred Tranchant, Esther Xilak, which is a trail runner from Hungary, and Kathleen Jerbin from United States. So there will be 7 of us leading like the different working groups, and then we will have like a general secretary taking care of the logistics and basically the everyday work of the association, which is a nonprofit, of course.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's an important thing that happened in 2022. I don't know if you wanted to mention other exciting things or pieces of news or just anything that happened this year.
I think this is maybe something related to what we were saying before this, in the way that this is something that I think it's starting to develop this year, but I'm also looking forward to how this will continue evolve next year. It's basically seeing more niche brands coming to the sport, meaning, you know, the project from Kilian, Normal, and other brands, you know, like Speedland, having, you know, Dylan kind of being the well-known name there. Also people like Norda, which is this Canadian, you know, company that's doing like this really high-end, you know, shoes. And I'm not saying this because I like gear and everything, but I think at least on a personal level, I like to see more diverse on the sport, not just the big brands out there. And of course, it's always good to have big brands, you know, in the scene, because I believe they help kind of grow the sport. But I do believe that there is a space, you know, to just have other things, maybe again more niche, in the way that they have a different vision, like of course different products, and even like a different, you know, way to tell the story about our sport. So I'm really excited about that and how, you know, it keeps evolving with time. And I think overall also it is good for people when it comes to, you know, having more opportunities, you know, to buy stuff. I know that our trail sport is like heavily gear, you know, oriented. So I think it's always good to have more options there. And also I know this year, for example, live streams are been really, you know, good in terms of like quality. Plenty of good live stream. I mean, the Golden Trail series has been doing a great job, not just this year, but the last couple of years. And then again, the UTMB as a whole, it's been making huge progress there. So I'm also super excited to see how this thing continues to evolve in order to make it more accessible to everybody, to just kind of relate how it is to be running, you know, at the front of Sagama, or how it is to be running, you know, mile 85 of UTMB, and how miserable you feel. And I can totally, you know, remember, you know, seeing Jim Walmsley going up the hill and going just like full on running mode to just slogging up the hill. And I can totally feel by the live stream, you know, the amount of pain and suffering that he was seeing. So I think technology as a whole has been evolving super fast in the last couple of years, and I'm sure that it will continue to evolve like a pretty quick pace in the next couple of years. So I'm super happy about how things are developed, but also excited to see how they will continue developing in the future for sure.
Yeah, I agree on both points. It just came to my mind an epic moment when I think it was the last climb of UTMB when Tom Evans passed Jim, and he was like crawling, walking, looking absolutely miserable. And the live stream captured that. So it was pretty cool. I think also our Vipa in the US is doing a really good job in streaming the races and with, you know, with race organization and coverage. So great work, our Vipa. And the thing that you mentioned about smaller brands, I think is very important from a storytelling perspective, like the way they develop their projects and they tell them, and they can maybe relate to a niche part of our sport. To me is very interesting. Then of course it's maybe the big brands who really put the money in to support races and elite runners, Adidas, Salomon, North Face, Hoka, But
I do have to say though that I feel like the competitive space is more open than ever. I feel like for many years, you know, Salomon was at the top of his game in terms of like results, like overall, not just for Kilian, but as a whole, as a team. And I feel like 2022,
there is a more even level.
Exactly, like a more
and you can see that
playing
even from the results of the Golden Throw series, for example.
Yeah.
It wasn't just Salmon athletes winning or placing in the races, but Jan Albon won and he's from the North Face. Killian won and he's from Normal. Nienke.
Yeah,
So,
Nike.
yeah,
I think
Ellie
that
McLaughlin, she's from On Running. So
I
a
think
lot
that's
of
also
people.
like I think that's also like healthy in the way that it
Oh,
helps
yeah.
like competitiveness and also kind of push the brands to kind of give more to the sport, because
Yeah.
I think it's kind of easy to kind of settle, oh, okay, I'm the big brand here, so I just will like won't break the status quo. But then again, I think the playing field is like super open right now when it comes to ultras and like sub ultra distances. So I think that it's exciting from a competitive standpoint, but at the same time, for the athletes, I think it's also great because they are probably now a little bit more empowered when it comes to closing contracts and everything. So I think that is also great for the sport as a whole.
Totally. Good point. Maybe the last question to wrap up this episode. What happened inside Vert, and then on a personal level, your training data, if you're happy with your 2022 season, or if you wanted to run more, or did you hit your elevation gain goal for 2022?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like Vert, I'm basically just happy overall for everything that we have achieved in the app side of things, but also on the human side of things. Just being able to have more people on board on the coaching side of things, and also just as a whole the team. I'm super happy for the human side of things, and also I think that having an app has opened up so many opportunities, also like complications and everything. But like overall, I'm happy with what we have able to achieve this year. But I also have to say that I'm super excited about 2023 and all the things that we have in our plate right now. So I'm hopeful that we are able to keep leveraging, technology to kind of help people with their trainings and everything, but also just being able to create more content that people can use for their, can be goals like motivations, and just like to be able to have the space of people to connect to our sport. So for me, on a personal level, that's huge, and I'm happy that we are continuing on that path in 2023.
Totally.
And then I guess when it comes to training, I had a subpar race I guess in my biggest goal of the season, so I can't really talk much about that. Of course, it was a great learning, and I'm super happy that I still went there and did my thing. In terms of like overall stats, and I do have to say that I keep a close track to those numbers. I guess I'm happy in the way that I give my best with the amount of things that I have on my plate work-wise. So yeah, I'm closing the year with almost 4,000 kilometers. I think I will be right around 4,000 kilometers, which for me, that I'm, I guess, an average runner, it's more than okay.
Oh yeah, it's more than 10 kilometers per day. So
I'm happy, I guess, because this year I debuted at the marathon after 10 years running trail race. I did my first marathon. That got me super excited. And actually, probably I'm thinking about, even though I mentioned that I wouldn't do another one, I think I'm actually gonna try again and do a better job there.
Nice.
And yeah, overall excited because I feel like every year I have the chance to meet people, to run in new places. So yeah, I'm super grateful for 2022 in terms of like running as a whole too.
Awesome.
So what about you?
Yeah, it's definitely been an exciting year. Not easy on a personal level. A lot of things with Vert. I'm actually really happy about this project, this podcast, that has had some really good guests and some great conversations with great topics. So that has been a project that I've tried to take care of, and I think being the first year, it was pretty good. At least it was very rewarding. And then yeah, really excited about everything we're doing with Vert, expanding and making trail running accessible to more people with Vert service, more training plans, more support, more features, a better community. So a lot of things. And then on a personal level, I should mention 2 fractures, 4,700 and something kilometers. Right now I'm reading from my Strava. I achieved my elevation goal, which was to go over 100,000 meters, which, you know, it might not sound like a huge amount, but I'm not like the average trail runner who goes out and do a massive elevation gain every day. I tend to run on flats, for example, on my easy days. And a lot of my training is like classic, meaning like a middle distance or marathon runner. So for me, that was pretty good. Also considering that I was out for a very long period at the beginning of this year. So happy where I am at the moment. Lots of lessons that I've learned this year. Some amazing places that I've visited. Met new people, made new friends. So yeah, for sure a year to remember. And looking forward to 2023.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So this was our end of the year trail running review. And I guess
we tried to keep it short, even though we probably could have been talking about this topic for a while. But hopefully we cover enough.
Yeah, hopefully. So this is our chance to wish you a good holiday season, Happy New Year, and just see you in 2023.
Yeah.
Thank you, Max.
Ciao, Fran.
Bye-bye.